Hello, everyone. I'm starting a new program, which is called CATO, by the name of the famous philosopher and senator. But also CATO stands for Cardano Adoption Through Outreach, the abbreviation. This would be the cycle of programs especially dedicated to Project Catalyst, the biggest crypto DAO. And today I'm very happy to have as a guest one of the most famous people in the Cardano ecosystem, Sebastien from Emurgo. I think Sebastien doesn't need introduction, but my first question would be, and I have some Japanese books in the background, Yuka Mishima, Kenzaburo Oe. Emurgo is not so known as IOHK or IOG in the Cardano ecosystem, and basically you are the biggest representative of Emurgo. How you, and I know you answered to this question, but how you came to crypto in general, to Japan, and to Emurgo, just briefly.
Yeah, so the Cardano project started with 3 entities, IOSK being in charge of the core R&D, the Cardano Foundation being in charge of the legal side, the community representation side, and that kind of the side of the project. And Emurgo was supposed to be about the adding value on top of the ecosystem. So taking what IOSK built and helping grow the ecosystem on top of that. And from this, when Emurgo started, there was not much that could really be done because Cardano was just started. There was no mainnet yet. IOHK is still doing a lot of development. And so for the first few years of the project, Emurgo was kind of in a waiting stage. And then once we had the mainnet launch back in 2017, I believe, that was kind of the start of Emurgo. And so Emurgo started, hiring people and getting stuff ready. And we started looking to the state of the ecosystem and what can be built and so on. But also at the time, Cardano didn't have smart contracts yet. We didn't have multi-assets yet. And so we looked at, what can we build with the ecosystem as it exists? And at the time, IOHK wanted a light wallet for the ecosystem. So we had Daedalus, which was a full node wallet. But this full node is not so useful if you want to run on a mobile device, which has limited storage and computing capabilities. And it's not great for people who want to run wallet in their browser without having to download a full copy of the blockchain. So IOHK wanted a light wallet, and they went to Emurgo and said, hey, you guys are just getting started. You're hiring people and trying to grow the company that the mainnet's launched. How about you take on a project of building a light wallet? And so that's how the Yoroi project got started, which is a light wallet run by Emurgo. And right before that happened, Emurgo, as I mentioned, was getting started, starting to hire people and so on. And so they reached out to me and they said, hey, we're a company in Japan. We're building on Cardano, and we know you from the community, because at the time I was already involved in Telegram and Reddit and so on. And they said, well, we know you're very kind of into the Cardano ecosystem. And I was a developer at the time. I was working for Microsoft. And so the content I was posting for the community was technical, going over the code, going over the research paper and so on. And so they said, we know you're technical and we know you speak Japanese. Would you be willing to come to Japan and kind of help us figure out what can we get started and what can we do as a company? And so I joined as the second engineer. So Nico, who's the Emurgo CTO, was the first. And so shortly after I joined, that's when we got the request to start working on the Yoroi wallet. So I went to Japan. Shortly after going to Japan, I went to Argentina, where we had some developers there that were associated with IOHK, a company called ATIX. And we were working with them to get this Yoroi project off the ground and transfer that project to Emurgo. And so since then, I've been working on Yoroi as a developer, but also I'm in charge of just the Cardano team in general at Emurgo. So I work as the Cardano project manager, and I'm also co-VP of engineering at Emurgo. And so I help not just with the Cardano side of things, but just general management of our engineering team.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this introduction. Like, I know that you already had this introduction in some other videos, but right now there are many new people are coming to Cardano ecosystem and crypto industry in general. So I think it's good to repeat sometimes. So the project Catalyst fund 2 was over, and the projects were funded, and your project it was, and that's why I'm very happy to speak with you, because it got like the biggest amount of vote. And the project was called Create a Message Signing Standard, and it was about generating a message signing standard to prove reserves, identity, and stake pool delegation. And it was really, in terms of budget, it was a small project, maybe something around $400, something around this. And the question is that if it's a small project, why don't you just speak with your colleagues and Emurgo and say, let's fund this? So this question, was it like you wanted to test the first like public round of the Cardano DAO, or some other reasons? And how is this project? Is it already implemented?
Yeah, so I can talk about the reason we did the Catalyst proposal. So as you know, all three entities, Cardano Foundation, IRHK, and Emergo, were given money to start the Cardano project, right? And so we've been using that money to build Yoroi, to build, the Cardano protocol, all the stuff we've done so far. And although we still have, a lot of money left, and there's not really any funding worry, money is finite, right? And we have to think about the Cardano project, which we think will last, decades, right? We don't expect Cardano to just disappear at some point. We think this project will last, decades at least, if not, longer. And so we have to think, okay, well, how do we secure the existence of our companies into the future? Because every project needs sustainability, and that was one of the core concepts of the Cardano project. A lot of blockchain projects have come and gone. A lot of times the reason they disappear is because they never really took sustainability into account. They just thought it was somehow 10 years from now we'll figure it out, and it never happens, and the project disappears. And so one of the sustainability goals of Cardano was to have a treasury system that can allow funding of various projects, any scale you want, as long as you get approval from the community. And so, although at Emergo, we don't particularly need the money to work on this kind of proposal because the cost is not that high, we wanted to kind of get into the idea of Emergo making treasury proposals. Because if we look, down the line, this is what we expect to see more and more of as we try and do more ambitious projects and, get more companies involved. So you can imagine in the probably near future, as we try and work on the 2025 roadmap, there'll be more Catalyst proposals that'll be not just Emergo, but it'll be, let's get, these 5 companies involved to build this large project, and to do that, we need a few $1 million and blah, blah, blah. And so we have, this vision of where we think the project will evolve and how the treasury plays into that. And to kind of get people used to the idea of doing this and to get the experience ourselves of how do we go about making a funding proposal, we thought, okay, it makes sense for us to make a treasury proposal for Fund 2 and ask for a small amount of money that basically just covers the cost of us making a proposal. So obviously making a proposal means I have to spend time to write it, I have to spend time getting it reviewed, and spend time submitting it to Catalyst and going to the Catalyst review meeting. So there's a whole, time commitment to doing this. So we figure, okay, we'll just, ask for a small amount to cover the extra time we're spending making this Catalyst proposal. But the actual core R&D of making this proposal, implementing it, is fully covered by Emergo.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks for explaining. Yeah. So actually this standard is already implemented, yes?
Yeah, so we're working on the implementation. So if you go to the Emergo GitHub repository, we have a Rust code base that implements this proposal and implements 2 things right now. It implements the data structures required for the proposal in Rust and WebAssembly. And it also has utility functions related to signing the messages. We haven't done the encryption part yet. And so right now we have the creation of the messages, parsing the messages, and assigning the messages. But we're going to look into adding the other parts of the functionality sooner than later. Once we have this done, then we have SDK that any wallet can use to implement this functionality. And the next step is to add this to Yoroi. So the idea is that once we have this fully implemented, users of the Yoroi wallet can open Yoroi, go to a signing page, and enter a message and get their message signed and send that over to whoever is requesting a proof. Now, we're also working in parallel on something called the connector for Yoroi, which is a way for dApps to connect to a blockchain through the Yoroi wallet. So we're working on this for Ergo right now, but we're going to be working on this for Cardano as well after we're done the Ergo implementation. And so this ties in well with the signing specification, because we could have in the future, for example, a stake pool on their stake pool website saying we're doing a giveaway of some kind. Anybody who's delegating to our pool in this epoch has a chance to win something. And the way you prove that you're delegating to the pool is you go to the stake pool website, press a button, and then open the Yoroi connector, say, do you want to sign a message saying you're delegating to the stake pool? You press yes, and it'd be a very simple user experience for the users. And I think stake pools really love this way to encourage participation of their community and engage them with their stake pool.
Yeah, that's great, and something similar exists like in other blockchains. For example, you maybe know this status wallet and the messenger, so there you can use Web3 browser with it. So what's the expected time frame when we can expect it?
Yeah, so the core SDK itself, as I mentioned, is already done. We don't have the encryption functionality, but we thought encryption is nice to be able to encrypt messages if needed, but for the core use cases, it's not really necessary. Like the example I just mentioned with, signing messages, prove you're staking to a stake pool, you don't really need to encrypt the message you sign for anything. And so we think the SDK is probably good enough for anybody to use for the common use cases. And the next step is working on the Yoroi extension implementation. Now, the problem with giving timelines for this kind of stuff is because our number one priority at Yoroi is to maintain kind of functional parity with what Cardano provides as a protocol. That means that whenever IOHK makes changes, then we have to quickly adapt to those and provide the functionality in Yoroi. So for example, recently we worked on Catalyst support. So now you can register for Catalyst inside Yoroi, and we're still working on this functionality for Yoroi Mobile. And so whenever IOHK makes changes to Catalyst, to Alonzo for Plutus support, any kind of change, we have to kind of drop our existing tasks and prioritize this. And so this project, like the message signing specification, these are projects that we do whenever we're waiting for the next step from IOHK's perspective. And so it's hard to give an exact estimate because that doesn't really depend on our bandwidth. It depends on IOHK's speed of development and how fast they deliver various features to the Cardano ecosystem. So obviously we don't want this proposal to drag on forever. And so probably within the next 1 or 2 months, we can get this implemented in the Yoroi extension. But some parts of it, like the connector I mentioned, where you can go for a website and go get the whole dApp experience, that's going to take longer. So the first version would just be a signing page inside the Yoroi extension. You'd have to use copy paste to send this information to the pool you're delegating to.
Yeah, I see. And what do you think? Maybe it's the need to increase the team of Emurgo who is working on Yoroi and increase via Project Catalyst. Were you thinking about this? What do you think?
Yeah, we're often hiring. So if you look at the Emurgo job portal, we're often looking for people. Unfortunately, finding good engineers these days is difficult. There's a lot of demand for engineers and not that many engineers. But we've been growing our team steadily over the past few years. We keep going up in number of engineers. And that is true for IOHK as well, who is also always hiring. So if somebody's watching this podcast and thinks, man, this sounds like a cool project, I'd love to work on this, then definitely reach out to us and we'll see if we can make something work.
Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. It's one of the goals of me doing this podcast. And what's your impression of the Catalyst in general? Was it like something you expected? Was it like maybe a little bit less at this point? And are you going to submit more proposals in the nearest future?
Yeah, so the Catalyst experience has been fairly smooth. I think the idea of IHK creating a Catalyst phone application that handles the voting has made things a lot smoother for Daedalus and Yoroi integration, because otherwise we would have had to implement a voting portal inside Daedalus directly and a voting portal inside Yoroi directly, both of which are non-trivial tasks. And so the idea of making it a standalone mobile app has made it much more accessible to everybody and has also sped up the development. I think the ideal scale website is a good first step. There's more work that needs to be done on making the interface more intuitive. There's more work that needs to be done on making the interface better accessible for non-English speakers. But overall, I think everybody who's wanted to make a proposal has had the ability to do so after they figure out how to navigate the website. So I think overall, Catalyst has gone pretty well, and you can see this by the numbers because the number of people have participated in Catalyst. I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a huge number. It's like in the thousands or tens of thousands, like something really high.
Yeah, and
And
it's growing all the time. I think it was
yeah,
maybe something
so
15.
Yeah, and I assume for Fund 4, Fund 5, it will just keep growing as we get not only more awareness, but also we're currently working on hardware wallet support. And so I can't give a date for when that will be released because it doesn't depend on just Amerigo, it depends on other companies as well. But we're working on hardware wallet support, and once we get hardware wallet support, we expect those numbers to go even higher. And so I think Catalyst, just looking at the user participation numbers, it's been a huge success. And part of the reason we did this Fund 2 proposal was to get into this idea of Emergo doing proposals in the future. And we would like to do joint proposals with other companies, particularly. Part of the goal of Cardano, the sustainability goal, is that it can't just be Emergo, Cardano Foundation, and IoT doing everything. We have to get more companies involved. And so over the past few years, there's been more companies getting involved in Cardano. As you know from your YouTube channel, there's other companies already who have Catalyst proposals funded who are building on Cardano. People have built companies in other routes by through their stake pools, or companies like Ada Light or Vacuum Labs through projects like Ada Light. So we've grown in the number of companies. We really see Catalyst as a way to bootstrap getting more companies involved. And so instead of doing proposals to fund a project for Emergo, we would be much more interested in doing a proposal where a company wants to build on Cardano and they need some expertise on the protocol side, maybe a few engineers to help on the design, and we could work with them. And I think this is a good way to get more companies involved in the project while also contributing to the company. Now, obviously, we're looking at the Catalyst rounds and the topics of the rounds and seeing if we have any projects that we can put as a proposal. But as I mentioned, we have a fairly limited amount of free time, given that our number one priority is keeping Yoroi up to date with all the functionalities on Cardano. And that's a huge amount of work because Cardano is evolving so fast and a lot of the functionalities are non-trivial in size. And so, we're looking at what projects we can propose as a Catalyst suggestion. But obviously, we're taking into account the existing work we have and how fast we're able to hire more developers. And so I can't really commit to any particular proposal for any of the rounds.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, so it's kind of possible that some companies which want to develop in Cardano, they can come to Emergo, for example, by the website, the contacts which are there, and speak with you and say like, hey, we have like this idea, but we lack like understanding of some aspects of Cardano.
Yep.
Let's do something together. So that's possible, yes?
Yeah, for sure.
And in, let's say, a big variety of development areas, yes, because of course it can't be a wallet because it will compete with Yoroi. Most probably you won't be interested in like this similar project, but something like related, for example, to supply chain or like games or DeFi. So all these areas are possible, yes?
Just anything in general, we're more than happy to For example, we work with a dayless team all the time. We work with a vacuum labs company all the time. We've done multiple contracts with vacuum labs for features that have shipped as, we work with them on the base, and then that feature ships on Yoroi and Adelaide. Separately, we worked a lot with Atomic Wallet to get them on board onto our libraries for wallet support. We've been in talks with some other mobile wallet providers about, getting Cardano support. Because one thing about Emergo is that, we also want to grow the Yoroi brand, but we also want to grow the Cardano ecosystem. And as part of that, we wrote tools for Cardano. So we wrote, the mobile SDK for Cardano. We wrote the desktop SDK for Cardano. So a lot of these build on Cardano are trying to look at Emergo's tools and seeing how they work. And some exchanges use our tooling as well. And so as part of that, we're more than happy to talk to other platforms integrating Cardano and helping them with the integration of our libraries and getting them to support Cardano. Because at the end of the day, the more people support Cardano, the better our ecosystem is. And that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, thanks. And my last question would be, you mentioned that you're growing Yoroi brand. And in one of the other interviews, you told that you're planning to add more other currencies. It won't be like a big list of currencies, but you mentioned that you will add like several. And one you already have is Ergo. And it's added to the browser wallet, but not yet on mobile. It's interesting to hear maybe some plans, if it's something which you can talk about, which currencies you plan to add and which features.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, for Yoroi, we're not interested in having support for a large number of wallets because there are already so many wallets out there that support, 100 cryptocurrencies, and they support like only the most basic functionality, like send and receive, and that's it. And we think if we also go into this market, there's just so much competition. There's no real unique value we can bring. We think the unique value we can bring from the Yoroi perspective is to have few currencies with really deep integrations that provide kind of all the functionality needed. And so the two currencies we support right now, as you mentioned, is Ergo and Cardano. And these cryptocurrencies work in somewhat similar ways. There's some important differences between the two, but they have some similarity, which allows that any work we do for Ergo benefits Cardano, and any work we do for Cardano benefits Ergo. And so we thought this is a good second project to get started with. We may add support for a third currency in the future, but we're not currently working on this. What we've been working on instead is we added multi-token support, multi-asset support for Ergo earlier this year, I think start of January. And we added multi-asset support for Cardano a few epochs ago. I think that was late February. I don't remember the exact dates of the hard fork. But so now we have
support,
multiple.
It is both on the mainnet or on the testnet.
Both.
But in the browser wallet, yes, not yet on mobile.
So on mobile, we also support multiple assets for Cardano, but the things that there's no DEX support in Cardano right now. So trying to find tokens and getting tokens is not easy. Obviously, we're looking into making this easier for users. But if that's why you may have seen that people in the community are creating kind of for fun tokens and sending them to people, because right now this is the best way to get your hands on a token and get the experience of how tokens are created and how to send and receive tokens. And so this is a functionality that was obviously released recently. And so in the coming months, you'll see more tools and more user experiences to make the flow easier to understand for users. But right now, as of the first version on Yoroi Mobile, you can receive tokens, you can send tokens, but there's no kind of button to see all the tokens on Cardano. There's no button to buy a token with USD. There's no button to swap tokens and this kind of functionality. But these are all things that we would love to add in the future.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that mobile is a big part of usage, that really lots of people, they use cryptocurrencies on mobile. And actually, because when we speak about the adoption, it's the thing which you have always with you, and you can transact with. And it would be good that I hope someday you can just visit Yoroi and then click the button, and it will authenticate you on the Catalyst application, or it will login you there, and then you can vote. So what do you think?
Yeah,
Last
we're
question.
actively working. We're actively working on Catalyst support for Yoroi Mobile. So we have one of our engineers working on this. We're hoping to get it done for Fund 4. But unfortunately, adding mobile support for Catalyst doesn't just require work from our side. It also requires changes to the Catalyst application itself. And the thing about Catalyst, as you may have noticed, is that it's a project that's growing really fast. And so the team has so many things they're working on. And so it's kind of hard to get extra bandwidth for them to add support for Yoroi Mobile into the Catalyst application itself. But we are talking with IHK about this. We do have engineers on their side also who understand the problem and who have committed to getting this developed. I'm just not sure if we'll get it for Fund 4, but definitely for Fund 5, we'll have support.
Yeah, great to know it. Okay, Sebastian, thank you for your time, and good luck with your future, Emurgo's future proposals in the project Catalyst.
Yeah, thank you very much.